Why a talk on the solar plexus when we could be focusing on the higher centers? Well, we all know that solar plexus is a sixth ray center, but DK tells us that the solar plexus is the most important center for all aspirants at this time. In his first teaching on the transference of the energy from the solar plexus to the heart, DK paraphrases the Bhagavad Gita in what he calls the plight of Arjuna. Oh, wait a minute, I'm getting that. The plight of Arjuna. Stand ready and watch the heart, he says. In the transferring of the fire from the solar plexus to the heart center comes much pain. It is not easy to love, as do the great ones, with a pure love which requires nothing back, with an impersonal love that rejoices where there is response, but looks not for it, and loves steadily, quietly, and deeply through all apparent divergences, knowing that when each has found his own way home, he will find that home to be the place of at-one-ment. So I'm going to interject here just an acknowledgement of our great teacher, Michael Robbins, who this sounds like it was written for him. So from the astrology pre-conference, we all know that Mars rules the personality-centered solar plexus and Neptune rules the solar plexus of disciples and initiates. But there are many intermediate steps between these two rulers. Initially, the personality-centered solar plexus is responsive to Mars' most material influence, which DK tells us embodies sixth ray force, which leads to idealism, destructive fanaticism, struggle, strife, war, effort, and evolution. This happens during the millennia-long experience gathering period called the Halls of Ignorance, probably with no clue to the deeper implications of their lyrics. The Everly Brothers put their finger on this solar plexus expression in their 1958 hit single, All I Have to Do Is Dream. The lyric, only trouble is, gee whiz, I'm dreaming my life away. This is the thrall of pure astral desire. In its next phase, Mars acts as what DK calls the unconscious quickener of the birth of the spiritual. This lifts the quality of our desire over millennia of incarnations, gradually loosening its purely material stranglehold on our consciousness, and thus taking us from Mars as the fundamental conditioning energy that comes to us through Aries, that initial influence, to its esoteric rulership, which DK calls the dominating factor in the tests and trials of the disciple. It's really important to recognize these two aspects of Mars. So it is during this shift that Pluto is invoked and begins influencing the solar plexus for those nearing the path. Pluto, DK tells us, becomes active in the life of the man who is becoming alive in the higher sense. His lower nature passes into the smoke and darkness of Pluto, who governs the lesser burning ground in order that the man may live in truth in the higher land of light. Pluto governs both the lesser burning ground associated with Leo and the first initiation, and later is active in the trials of Scorpio. During this protracted phase, the aspirant stands in the halls of learning. Finally, gradually, the solar plexus begins to respond to the impersonal, aspirational energy of Neptune. Concerning the transference from Martian to Neptunian energy, DK says, this will happen if, speaking esoterically, the sixth ray energy of Mars is transmuted into the sixth ray energy of Neptune. For the one is objective and full of blood, and the other is subjective and full of life. In a treatise on cosmic fire, we learned that the heavenly man who embodies the solar logoic solar plexus, that's the solar logoic solar plexus, okay, to lift up into the cosmic here, manifests on the fourth etheric or Buddhic subplane of the cosmic physical plane. That's what creates a connection between the Buddhic and the astral plane. Because it irradiates this subplane, called by DK the goal of humanity, this center of solar logoic energy has become a vital factor in our planetary evolution during this fourth round. For humanity, solar plexus energy as a medium for astral polarity came to the fore during the fourth Atlantean root race, when the solar plexus dominated humanity's consciousness. Since Atlantis was a failed root race, it has been left for us to gain control of, instead of being controlled by, solar plexus energy. That was supposed to be done in the last root race. So the causal source of this struggle is found in Shambhala, which is working to direct the force of the Earth's Kundalini away from the lower centers. When this redirection has occurred, we're told, crime will be greatly reduced. Art will take on a higher beauty. Scientific work will see major breakthroughs. And perhaps most astonishingly, the quote, interplay between the three dense physical planets will be perfected, and man will pass at will from one to another. But let's get back to the microcosm. The solar plexus is a chakra that stands at the midway point, and which, much like the Buddhic plane does, at this stage in humanity's evolution, has 10 rosy colored petals, the sixth ray rose of desire, with an admixture of green. By the way, these colors given us by DK are at odds with all other descriptions of the solar plexus that I could find, which universally depict it as a golden yellow. The color DK ascribes to the heart center. Just do a Google search. This is what you'll see. DK goes on to say that when a disciple's consciousness begins to be influenced by the Buddhic permanent atom, green eventually infuses that center. Interestingly, green is universally recognized as the color of the heart chakra. So it seems we have an esoteric blind in this green gold color reversal. Chakras, whose petals are formed by the whirling of its vortices, are electrically polarized to one another. For example, the solar plexus is the negatively charged pole of the positively and magnetically charged heart center, which is interesting given the fact that the solar plexus responds to the color red, and the heart, we're told, responds to green. Red's polar opposite on the color wheel. So you can see why I was fascinated with Jose's presentation this morning. The area around the solar plexus is particularly sensitive to the impact of etheric energy, for it is this area of the etheric body that is in direct touch with the astral or feeling body. It's literally a portal into the astral world, which is something we all know, right? It's a portal into the astral plane. It's our link, and is thus the source of our emotions, moods, desires, and feelings. It is also through the solar plexus that the lower centers are contacted and the bodily functions aroused, the desire to eat, to drink, and to procreate. This is why the solar plexus acts as the brain in the animal kingdom, as well as ruling, as it did in Atlantean times, astrally polarized humanity. In fact, it is in the solar plexus that the animal soul merges into the soul of a human being. And through this merging, DK tells us, the germ of Christ consciousness is planted. This brings up a somewhat unexpected fact. The solar plexus is a function of the second principle, which is ultimately ruled by love wisdom, not the third principle of intelligent activity, as might be expected. In fact, the second aspect is perfected through the relationship between the solar plexus and the heart, which eventually allows the love of the soul to express itself perfectly through the emotional nature. This is a very important point. The emotional nature expressed through the solar plexus is not left behind on the path of evolution, but rather becomes an exquisitely sensitive vehicle for soul expression. We see and hear this heart-entrained solar plexus, especially in great works of art. We tend to view our highly sensitive emotional body as a given. But in the early stages of human development, the energy that streams and has always streamed to us from the monad has had a dual purpose: to energize the bloodstream via the sutratma and to awaken the solar plexus in order to develop physical magnetism, which eventually develops into feeling sensitivity, one of the cornerstones of personality formation. It is at this stage that the solar plexus is the, quote, goal of the attention of the fire. And when its emotional counterpart, the solar plexus in the astral sheath, begins to vibrate synchronously with the physical etheric solar plexus, they come into a rhythmic harmony. DK says, the average, though still unthinking human being works through his astral body, and because he is there polarized, works through his solar plexus center, etherically and primarily. All impressions find entrance into the aura via the area around that part of the etheric vehicle. During this stage, the personality equates reality with his or her emotions. By the way, I had to change this picture because I found it on the internet, and of course they had the solar plexus gold and the heart green, so I switched them. Anyway, for them, okay, let me reread this. During this stage, the personality equates reality with his or her emotions. For them, truth is their feelings. For many, this results in a dangerous overstimulation of the solar plexus, leading to an exclusive orientation to the astral plane, which in turn intensifies the cleavage between the astral and the mental vehicles, often resulting in intestinal, liver, and nervous disorders. Fortunately, the energy of this fifth root race is compelling humanity to shift from astral to mental polarity, thus allowing the solar plexus to function as it is meant to, as a clearinghouse which gathers to itself all the lower energies and readies them for transference to the higher chakras. This brings up a unique aspect of the solar plexus described in Discipleship in the New Age, Volume 2. There are 2 points of vital light within the solar plexus center, which makes this center of dominant importance and a clearinghouse for the centers below the diaphragm to those above it. One of these points of light is connected with the lower psychic and astral life, and the other is brought into livingness by the inflow from the head center. I would here remind you that the centers above the diaphragm have only one vital point of energy, whilst the centers below the solar plexus also have only one, but that the solar plexus itself has 2 points of dynamic energy. One most ancient and awakened, being expressive of the life of the astral or lower psychic body, and the other waiting to be brought into conscious activity by the soul. When this has happened, the awakening to the higher issues of life makes the disciple sensitive to the higher psychic gift waves, in quotes, higher psychic gift waves, as the Tibetan occultists call them, of the spiritual world. The path between these 2 points is the path between exoteric and esoteric Mars, with the path itself made possible by the influence of Pluto. So in the life of the aspirant, and increasingly so in the life of the disciple, a dynamic interaction between these 2 points comes into play, which conditions the sacral and material energies. This interplay invokes the transmuting and refining energies of Pluto, whose first ray energies burn away the lower energies, allowing the aspirant to raise his or her vibratory quality so that they may be transferred to the higher point of light, called by DK the awakening point. This transference takes place between the stage of aspiration and a period just before the second initiation. These 2 etheric points in the solar plexus are a microcosm of the soul personality polarity, and the transfer of their energies naturally occurs as we seek to purify our nature so that we may live as souls in this world of human endeavor. It is these 2 points that make the solar plexus a quote unquote great transmuting station. This transference opens a channel between the astral and Buddhic permanent atoms. The aspirant then becomes strongly Buddhic astral, which in turn opens a channel to the intuition and completely reorients his or her astral expression. It's interesting to note that taste is the sense associated with the solar plexus, and that the sense of taste on the Buddhic plane manifests as intuition. You may remember the occult aphorism, to will, to know, to dare, and to be silent. In a treatise on white magic, we learned that these directives are each related to one of the centers. To dare is related to the solar plexus, and we're told, gives the clue to the subordination of the personality. To dare is also related to Leo, where the disciples must slay the lion of his own lower or lunar nature, as did Heracles, a lion that expresses itself through an exoteric Mars ruled by the solar plexus. DK tells us that to will is the prerogative of spirit. To know is the function of the soul. To dare is the duty of the personality, and to be silent is the ultimate dharma or destiny of the matter aspect of the animal nature in its interplay with the soul. The Leonian to dare, which redirects the solar plexus towards the higher chakras, also leads the disciple onto one of many burning grounds. DK says, it will be found that before the door of initiation lies the burning ground, which all disciples and initiates must tread. The Leo subject, sun or ascendant, treads the burning ground with will and self-effacement. Transferring the energy that has heretofore expressed itself through the personality and is held in the lower or awakened point of the solar plexus to the higher awakening point stimulates the heart, eventually resulting in the second great transference, the transfer of energy between the solar plexus and the heart. This comes in response to the magnetic pull of the soul ray as it begins to dominate the personality ray. It is a long and painful process, we're told, covering many lifetimes and carrying with it many physical ills. So, not to be deterred, what can we do to help stimulate this transference of energies? The first method is to invoke Plutonian energy to aid us in the subjugation of the lower nature, which helps us to change those habits that serve to activate the lower centers and thereby hold us in the non-reality of separation by acting as if we were already loving, soul-infused personalities. The second method is through a knowledge of meditation, which allows us to demonstrate the fact that, quote, energy follows thought. In this regard, DK suggests that we visualize the heart center, which in the undeveloped person is a closed lotus turned downwards, as reversing, turning upwards and unfolding, thus reflecting the soul in us through the light of love glowing from that chakra's central point. You know, this form of visualization is a way of acting as if. The radiance of an upturned, light-filled heart center, we're told, illumines the path, but it's not the path itself. Said another way, the path is within us, and this the heart reveals. So through these methods, practiced over several lifetimes, the upward transference of purified energies begins to awaken the heart. The disciple slowly becomes decentralized from his personality, responsive now to Neptune, and thus group aware. The energy of the heart is group energy. Group awareness comes through, energizing the heart. In tandem with this process, depending on the rays of the sheaths, transference of the energies of the sacral center to the throat is also underway. Usually they happen concurrently. And through this transference, the disciple becomes creatively intelligent along some line of expression, again, probably determined by their personality ray. Nonetheless, for many lives, these cycles of higher perception and spiritual effort, which open vistas of mystical life, alternate with periods of selfish motivation. So it's not just a linear move where you leave it all behind. You cycle back in. During the next period of transference, energy moves from the throat to the ajna center, which temporarily dampens the mystical impulse. And because the ajna center is the seat of the integrated personality, ambition reasserts itself, this time not in service of emotional desire, but rather to fully awaken the mind and thus establish the shift from emotional to mental polarity. This energetic shift often expresses itself through forms of group work that enhance personality expression and potency. Again, you don't necessarily just leave the personality behind. Nonetheless, the ajna center is vivid and potent. The throat center is intensely active, and the heart center is rapidly awakening. There's a kind of yin-yang alternation to these last two stages. First, the transference of solar plexus energy to the heart, stimulating the mystical life, then transference of the energies of the throat to the ajna center, which temporarily dampens the mystical and re-stimulates the personality. Because remember, the ajna center is the seat of the integrated personality. And through this transference, there's a more full awakening of the mind and transference to the mental plane. But in the next stage, the two streams come together. The mystical instinct, now tempered by creative intelligence, awakens the highest head center, and the soul begins to pour its energy into all the etheric centers via the head center. Okay, since it specifically addresses the transference of energy from the solar plexus to the heart, I'd like to finish up with a short version of meditations 1 and 2, which can be found in Discipleship in the New Age, Volume 2. I'm not presenting this as a way of giving out new information, though I'm sure some of you will find that useful. Many of you know these meditations and have been using them for years. This is more about coming together as a group now to work as a group to lift our solar plexus energy into the heart. The artwork shown during this brief meditation is by Morya Federation student Maria Michaelis. So, odd, I know, to have a meditation at the end of a presentation, but this is sort of a teaching meditation and a way of aligning the group energies for this transference. So let's begin by sitting up straight to align our chakras and using our breath to calm our physical and emotional bodies. Calm any emotions that may be acting up. And then let us, as a group, lift our consciousness onto the mental plane. And thus enter into this group's soul field. You can help this process by visualizing a ring of brilliant light with each of us here at the conference as points within that field of light, within that ring of light. And with the Master DK, Michael Robbins, and the group soul at the center. So it is in this place of expanded awareness that we are gradually beginning to realize that there is no my soul and thy soul, but only this group soul, which is part of the great soul of humanity. Now let us lift our point of focus to the group ajna center. And then all these group centers can gain access to them through each of our own centers. So through your own ajna center, imagine and visualize the group ajna center. Holding focus in this point between the eyebrows, seat of the integrated personality. Visualize a link, an assumed relation between, first of all, the heart and head centers, and then extend that link to the solar plexus. So that from that place in the ajna center, we are together as a group, linking the head, heart, and solar plexus centers. This has the effect of enlivening and aligning the energies of these four centers. Now let us move our point of focus into the group heart. Again, access through each of our own heart centers, where we will intensify our aspiration and concentrate our thought. DK tells us it must be recognized that the concentration of thought energy is definitely there. Now, let us, again through the agency of our group soul, lift the heart's aspiration, life, and devotion into the center above the head and consciously focus these qualities there. Heart's aspiration, life, and devotion. Visualize the highest point of tension in the head center, which bridges to the soul. Now we'll softly sound the Om 3 times, breathing it out first to the soul, then to the hierarchy, and finally outward to humanity. Om. DK tells us that these 3 recognized factors, soul, hierarchy, and humanity, now constitute a definite and linked triangle of force. Now, with the focus of the group consciousness still in the head, let us, by an act of the will, carry the energy focused in the head to the solar plexus, while at the same time keeping our group focus in the head. To facilitate this descent of energy, pictorially envision the process of focusing, demanding, descending, and at-oneing as we say the following mantra. So as I speak this mantra, visually throw the energy while holding the place in the head to the solar plexus. I am the soul, and also love I am. Above all else, I am both will and fixed design. My will is now to lift the lower self into the light divine. This light I am. Therefore, I must descend to where the lower self awaits my coming. That which desires to lift and that which cries aloud for lifting are now at one. Such is my will. Let us now pause and endeavor to sense the initiatory vibration which is being established between the awakened and the awakening points within the solar plexus. This involves an act of slow concentration, and we'll take a moment here. The initiatory vibration established between these 2 points. Let us now sound the Om twice from the head center, knowing ourselves to be the soul which is breathing it forth. DK tells us to believe this sound, carried on the breath of will and love, as capable of stimulating the solar plexus in the right way and able to transmute the lower energies so that they will be pure enough to be carried, first of all, to the awakening point, and from that point, eventually to the heart center. As we vision the energies of the solar plexus being carried up the spine to the heart center, let us breathe out the Om once again into the solar plexus. Om. Now, draw the focused energy created up the spine towards the head. Feel the vibration. Carry the energy into the heart as it passes through that center on its way to the head. Finally, let us focus our group awareness in the heart, believing that a triangle of energy has been formed between the head, the heart, and the solar plexus. Vision it then as composed of the energy of light, resembling a triangle of indigo neon light. And we'll close with a mantra of unification. The souls of all are one, and we are one with them. We seek to love, not hate. We seek to serve and not exact due service. We seek to heal, not hurt. Let pain bring due reward of light and love. Let the soul control the outer form and life and all events, and bring to light the love which underlies the happenings of the time. Let vision come and insight. Let the future stand revealed. Let inner union demonstrate and outer cleavages be gone. Let love prevail. Let all people love. Thank you.